Namaste dear learners, I welcome you to our audio recording of literary terms, and the first term is absurd literature. The term is applied to a number of works in drama and prose fiction which have in common the sense that the human condition is essentially absurd, and that this condition can be adequately represented only in works of literature that are themselves absurd. Both the mood and dramaturgy of absurdity were anticipated as early as 1896 in Alfred Jarry's French play Ubu Roy, Ubu the King. The literature has its roots also in the movements of expressionism and surrealism as well as in the fiction written in the 1920s of Franz Kafka, The Trial Metamorphosis. The current movement, however, emerged in France after the horrors of World War II as a rebellion against essential beliefs and values of traditional culture and traditional literature. This earlier tradition had included the assumptions that human beings are fairly rational creatures who live in an at least partially intelligible universe, that they are part of an ordered social structure, and that they may be capable of heroism and dignity even in defeat. After the 1940s, however, there was a widespread tendency, especially prominent in the existential philosophy of men of letters such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, to view a human being as an isolated existent who is cast into an alien universe, to conceive the universe as possessing no inherent truth, value, or meaning, and to represent human life in its fruitless search for purpose and meaning, as it moves from the nothingness whence it came toward the nothingness where it must end, as an existence which is both anguished and absurd. As Camus said in The Myth of Sisyphus, written in 1942, in a universe that is suddenly deprived of illusions and of light, man feels a stranger. He is an irremediable exile. This divorce between man and his life, the actor and his setting, truly constitutes the feelings of absurdity. Or as Eugene Ionesco, French author of The Bald Soprano in 1949, The Lesson in 1951, and other plays in the theatre of the absurd, has put it, cut off from his religious, metaphysical, and transcendental roots, man is lost. All his actions become senseless, absurd, useless. Ionesco also said in commenting on the mixture of moods in the literature of the absurd, people droning in meaninglessness can only be grotesque, their sufferings can only appear tragic by derision. Samuel Beckett, 1906 to 1989, the most eminent and influential writer in this mode, both in drama and in prose fiction, was an Irish man living in Paris who often wrote in French and then translated his works into English. His plays, such as Waiting for Godot, written in 1954, and Endgame, written in 1958, project the irrationalism, helplessness, and absurdity of life in dramatic forms that realistic settings, logical reasoning, or a coherently evolving plot. Waiting for Godot presents two tramps in a waste place, fruitlessly and all but hopelessly waiting for an unidentified person, Godot, who may or may not exist and with whom they sometimes think they remember that they may have an appointment. As one of them remarks, nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes. It's awful. Like most works in this mode, the play is absurd in the double sense that it is grotesquely comic and also irrational and non-consequential. It is a parody not only of the traditional assumptions of Western culture but of the conventions and generic forms of traditional drama, and even of its own inescapable participation in the dramatic medium. The lucid but eddying and pointless dialogue is often funny. Pratfalls and other modes of slapstick are used to project the alienation and tragic anguish of human existence. Beckett's prose fiction, such as Mulholland Dies, written in 1958, and The Unnameable, written in 1960, present an anti-hero who plays out the absurd moves of the end game of civilization in a known work, which tends to undermine the coherence of its medium, language itself. But typically, Beckett's characters carry on, even if in a life without purpose, trying to make sense of the senseless and to communicate the uncommunicable. Another French playwright of the absurd was Jean Genet, who combined absurdism and diabolism. Some of the early dramatic works of the Englishman Harold Pinter and the American Edward Albee are in a similar mode. The plays of Tom Stoppard, such as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, written in 1966, and Travesties, written in 1974, exploit the devices of absurd theatre more for comic than philosophical ends. There are also affinities with this movement in the numerous recent works which exploit black comedy or black humor, baleful, naive, or inept characters in a fantastic or nightmarish modern world play out their roles in what Ionesco called a tragic farce, in which the events are often simultaneously comic, horrifying, and absurd. Examples are Joseph Heller's Catch 2020, written in 1961, Thomas Pynchon's We, written in 1963, John Irving's The World According to Garp, written in 1978, and some of the novels by the German Gunter Grass and the Americans Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and John Barth. Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove is an example of black comedy in the cinema. More recently, some playwrights living in totalitarian regimes have used absurdist techniques to register social and political protest. See, for example, Largo Desolato by the Jacques Vaclav Havel and The Island, a collaboration by the South African writers Ethel Fugard, John Carney, and Winston Nochna. See Wit, Humor, and the Comic and refer to Martin Esslin, The Theatre of the Absurd, written in 1968, David Grossvogel, The Blasphemers, The Theatre of Brecht, Ionesco Beckett, Jean, Arnold P. Hinchliffe, The Absurd, Max Epps Schools, Black Humor, Fiction of the 60s, and Enoch Bratter and Ruby Cohn edited Around the Absurd, Essays on Modern and Postmodern Drama. Thank you.